Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mercatani with another episode of Matt Chat, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. As most of you know, I am headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. We have an all Missouri, all minority podcast today. Let's go. From Missouri, assistant coach Don Bradley, associate head coach, and the new star of Las Vegas, Kendric Maple. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so talk to you guys a little bit at the meet, a little bit off air. Let's I don't even know where to start, man. Like Dom, you've been doing this for a while now. How many US Open medals and all that kind of stuff is it for you now?
I don't know how many medals I have, probably a lot, but this was my 15th U.S. Open / Senior Nationals.
The GOAT.
So, yeah, it was a long time.
That's GOAT status, right? Like 15, dang, dog.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool with Coach Maple being there. The guy who coached me is wrestling, and then he's literally walking off the mat. He's like, all right, you ready to go? And I'm like, dude, you just pinned some guy. That was sweet. Like, how you going to coach me? But yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
It's cool, dog. I got you. Let's go. Let's get to that inside single and go to work, right? Like,
Yeah.
All right. So I had Rocky, Keegan, and Brian on after those guys won the Worlds. That was cool. We did a 3-shot from your, I think, lounge, basically, there at Mizzou. And that was awesome for the program. Obviously, Rocky comes through in places at NCAAs. Keegan wins NCAAs. They talked about the training camp being at Mizzou. Heard rave reviews when I talked to Joe Russell and Kevin Jackson about it. But the big story that broke out of there was from Keegan, which everybody knows now. So I don't know who I'm going to ask about how. When I'm probably going to ask Kendric and have Dom fact check. I think that's the way this is going to go. So Keegan, just as a by the way, I mean, which is not clearly the lead after those guys win age group world titles, as Dom has done. But by the way, Coach Maple's wrestling in the U.S. Open, and he's really freaking good. It's literally that he's like, let's go, right? So, all right. So let's start with, how did it exactly happen, Kendric?
Well, I think Dom had some inner workings of this. Him and Keegan. And so however they came up with the game plan, and Keegan comes up and asks me, he's like, dude, you got to compete. I'm like, no. And he's like, all right, if I win Worlds, you got to compete. And so, of course, I said no, hell no.
Okay, you said no originally. All right.
Yep. And so he gives me time, and he comes back on another day and asks me again. And he does it in front of the whole team. Everybody's quiet. Dom's sitting there in the background laughing and put me in a corner. So I'm like, all right, man. So, let's shake on it. And as soon as we shook, I'm like, this dude's winning a world title. Like, I'm wrestling. Like, it's happening.
All right. So, Dom, A, is that how it happened? And B, what was your involvement in it?
I've been trying to do this bet for like 3 years. Originally, it was like Brock Mahler. I was like, hey, tell Coach Maple when you win a national title, he has to wrestle the Open. So it was like gonna work, and then COVID happened. So it was like, dang. Then the next year it was like, Keegan, just win nationals, man. You're a freshman, true freshman. Like, let's go win. And of course he lost, and like Coach Maple's always said, it just wasn't meant to be. I mean, if Keegan actually would have won, then maybe Stanford doesn't have a program. But it just didn't happen. So I was just telling Keegan.
Wait, so was that a bet that year? Was that bet in existence?
No, it was like underneath the table, though. It was kind of like, hey,
they're still scheming.
So then when they made the world team, the whole time those two made the world team, I'm like, you two got to make a bet with Coach Maple. And Rocky's like, Rocky's Rocky. Rocky's in his own world. He's going to win. He's just going to do his thing. But Keegan is just like, Coach Maple will do anything Keegan says it for him. So it worked out really, really, really
most
good.
of the time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
They're both awesome guys to work with. I mean, and I was, Rocky wrestled in our charity event. I've known his dad, and Zach wrestled in our event. So I've known that family. He's, they're Missouri family. Dom, you're a Missouri guy. You know how it is. Everybody kind of knows each other here for sure. All right. So Keegan wins, right? They both win, which is obviously awesome for the program. It's awesome for recruiting. Dom, you got 2 people to join the Junior World Champ Club. That's, I know you don't want to be the only guy. You're not out putting on social. You're the only guy. Right. I mean, for real, like some people like try to pump themselves like it's that humble brag. I hope somebody can join me. Like you're not that guy. I know that. So how long after they get back does the bet get brought up? Like, is it instantaneous? Is there a day or two of celebrating?
First thing in the group me.
Actually, the first thing was Keegan wins his world title, gets his hand raised, and he comes right over to me and he's like, "You better be ready to lace him up." And
At
so
the match?
I'm like,
You gotta
yeah,
read
I'm
you
like,
gotta read his lips when he wins. It's exactly what he says.
you can see it. So I'm pumped for this. I'm so excited. I think we're gonna come do this big hug. And I do get a hug, but right before it, he says that, and I'm like, so he's hugging me, and I'm like, oh man. I was like, oh, this is the first thing you bring up.
How crazy is it that kid in that moment can go from 100% focused on this? I mean, you guys are just wrestled, right? Like, and you're also coaching that weekend in Vegas, but wrestling's a selfish sport, right? Like when you're on the mat, your job is just to win. And maybe I shouldn't say it's a selfish sport. There are aspects to it that are very selfish, right? Like when you're cutting weight, like if we're teammates and I lose, you're like, man, that sucks. I got to go win now. Like it's not like we all put our heads down, right? Like and you guys are coaches now and you're telling guys that, like, if I'll just pick Certain because he bats leadoff. If he gets some terrible call against him, Connor Brown can't let that impact how he wrestles and on up the board, right? But the opposite of that is Keegan, right? Like he wins the worlds, and it wasn't like he just went out and 10-0'd that dude. It's like that was a match, like that was a match, barn burner match, and comes off and says that to you. But so you come back to Columbia now. Is it like, are you on blast now, Kendrick?
Yeah, they're getting a kick out of it. So I start getting all the texts and them talking trash about how they're gonna break me in a workout and all this stuff. They all wanted to coach me, put me through some workouts. So it was pretty funny. But we had to get focused on the season.
Junior Worlds were September or October?
August.
Yeah, before that.
So it's the whole season. Like you're just like when school's starting, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kendrick, you look like you walking around about 3.8% body fat. So Dom and I are holding yours for you. Okay. Like if you need any, we got it on reserve for you. How much do you walk around at?
Typically like, shut up, Dom. Like 48, 49. I'll get up.
That's a lie. It's like 47.
It's about 150 after the buffet.
Yeah, 150 after the buffet. Give me that.
Okay. So you're not in, it was 65 is 143 flat, basically, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right. Just for people that aren't doing math at home. So Dom, it feels like you're the big brother in all this. Are you, I guess part of your coaching now, are you coaching Maple? Are we studying film during the season to help Maple out? Or is it just sort of in the background, or how does this go?
It kind of just like, it's funny because like he's like, hey, I just learned this new move. I want you to do it. So it's funny, like Kendrick would practice and he wanted me to run his practices. And I'm like, if you take it too serious, I don't think you're gonna do well. So he just goes in and has guys rotate in on him. And it's funny. I've always been around Kendrick for like the last 4 years, and I get to see when his gears turn when he's ready to go live. And man, it's scary. So I already knew he was gonna win. I told everybody 7 to 8 months ago, whenever Keegan won, I'm like, Kendrick's going to win the Open. Nobody really believed me. And I was like, I promise you he's going to win. And I'm not even really like anything. Kendrick's my coach. So like anything he says, I do. So it's probably the opposite. I think it's weird. I don't think it's weird, but probably people think it's weird. It's like a big guy, little guy, a guy who's 3 years younger than me is coaching me. But like, I absolutely love it.
But respect is respect. When, friendship is friendship, right? And you can learn from anybody, right? Like, I promise, like I'm older than both of you. If I go watch you guys teach for a day, I'm going to learn something. So, that age thing that's like for weak-minded, closed-minded people that look at the world the wrong way, I think, right?
Well, so yeah, funny story you say that. So at first, when we were both at Nebraska training, it was like, first tournament we went to, like, I kind of was like telling Kendra, like, here's the rules of freestyle. It's like, hey, we both just took second at the world team trial. So it's kind of like trying to fill each other out, help each other. And then it was like, Kendrick was coaching and I was training, and then it was kind of weird. And then all of a sudden one day I was like, hey, can you put me through a workout? And it was kind of like a pride thing for me. Like, man, I need to ask somebody to help me. And I did. And he was like, yeah. And he goes, dang, I didn't know you could actually like wrestle like this. Like you could wrestle and do these things. It was just like, he just thought I was just some big, powerful dude to run people over. And I was like, no, I have technique and all these great things. And then like when that moment happened, it was like a aha moment, all clicked together. And it's just like, ever since then, it's like I ask him for technique, we ask each other for technique. It's just bouncing off one of another.
That's that intellectual generosity and collaboration. That's really cool. You see it a lot at a high level. I'm lucky enough with these pods, and then the people I get to sit and watch wrestling with. It's like guys like yourself are cool. Like if I happen to be sitting there, I can pick your guys' brains, and people are like, they're not jerks about it. It's like, yeah, that we're thinking this, or this guy should do this, and inevitably, like 30 seconds later, the guy either does it and it works, or he does the opposite and it doesn't work. And it's like it's these PhD classes, and like we just started a wrestling club out here in St. Charles, and I missed one practice because I was in Vegas. But I'm like, I promise y'all, I'm gonna come back with some knowledge and some ideas. And I mean, you can't help it, right? If you go out there and listen. So Kendrick, to be fair, Dom was that dude coming out of Missouri. Like he won state as a sophomore. It was like a 215. Was it 215, Dom? Then was that the way?
That dating myself, yeah.
Right, nobody here can complain about being old. Both of y'all can be quiet. So, but yeah, he was that guy, and he came out in the same class as a couple of the guys who were on my team that were really good, like Teron Wynn and Senzi. And they were all buddies. So I've known him for a minute, and I'd always sharing knowledge and stuff. So Kendrick, Dom, all right, Dom, you wrestle in these all the time. So do you get nervous much anymore? Or is it just like you love to compete and just let the fur fly kind of
thing? Both.
Yeah.
But the thing that really made it like really, really fun was like the whole time me and Kendrick like say to everybody like, hey, have fun. Have fun when you wrestle. So legitimately, like I've never in my life, probably since I was in high school, you're talking about it, I haven't had this much fun. And the whole time Kendrick asked me in the finals, I'm winning 1-0 in a break. He's like, are you having fun yet? And I'm like, I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, yeah. And even my mom yesterday, I saw my mom for the first time in a while. I went to visit my parents and she was like, why were you smiling? Like, why? And I'm like, I'm just so happy. Like, it's crazy. My body doesn't work as quick as my mind does, but I still have it. But it's just fun. Like you said, go let it fly. It's like, if I make the team, it's awesome. If I don't, I don't. But I just want these kids to know that, like, hey, you can do anything you set your mind to. Have fun. Sport's way too hard not to have fun, right? It's way too hard.
Facts.
Yeah. So facts. And you're not like you hear this at the most successful programs, right? That they're preaching, have fun, relax. It's just a match. One of the guys that won nationals, we were in the back, and he said, my coach told me 10 years from now, no one's going to remember who won or lost this match. So stop. I see the nods, like, stop making a bigger deal. And then you see the opposite, like some mother or father living their second childhood through a kid at like a local tournament, like losing their mind on them. So, I mean, I've been at your guys' practice. You guys are always welcoming. I see the kickball games and stuff like that. But are you guys consciously in this coaching structure? You guys, Coach Smith, Manley, the whole, T-Todd, all of you guys. Is it a conscious effort to just remind guys that it's you fell in love with wrestling and to be fun, Kendrick? Is that what you guys are preaching?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's not to say that there's not hard times. Like we still work really hard. We still scrap. There might be a fight or two that breaks out, but at the end of the day, like it's a brotherhood in that wrestling room, and we preach you want to have fun and you want to learn. If you're not doing those two things, man, wrestling is miserable because it is a hard sport. No one likes getting their head beat in all the time. So if you don't have learning that goes on, if you don't have elements of fun, then you're going to burn yourself out. And so if we can keep these guys interested, loving the sport, then they're going to get better. If you love something, you're going to get better at it.
So obviously Dom had money on you in Vegas based on what he said. Got that winning ticket. I mean, Kendrick, I'm guessing you're obviously a little bit nervous, but I mean, did you feel really confident going in? Were you just like, this is cool that my guys love me enough to make this bet? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
I had a very different approach than I've ever had before going into competition. I was very excited. I wanted to be on the mat. And you know, just like Dom said, like it was very freeing. It was fun. Like me and him joking around before the match. It was hard not to be relaxed when I had to go look at Big Dom's smile right before a match and see like he's pumped up and like why not go put on a show? Why not go wrestle? You know, what's the point of getting all tight, which is what I've done in the past? What's the point of that when you've been blessed with skills? You got to go out and show them. And so I was excited, and you know, me and Dom, I think we're more excited for each other than our own matches. So, I mean, it's when you have like wrestling for yourself is great, and I think there's an element to that. But wrestling for the bigger, like thinking about others and having other people in your corner, you're in other people's corner. It makes wrestling a little easier too.
I think that's part of the lesson you learn as we get older and mature and become less selfish. And coaching is obviously the ultimate unselfish part, right? Like you would give almost anything for these kids that you love, that you know are living the right lifestyle to win. So like when your guys place at the nationals or win a national title or make a world team or win a world title or multiple world titles, I'm guessing that probably honestly, genuinely means more to you than the accolades you guys have received, which are obviously a ton.
Yeah.
So Kendrick, we may, depending on how long this goes, get into the recruiting stories with you guys. But I remember when you were in college, you had some injuries. You know, like you weren't healthy the whole time. Did you feel healthy? Like, have you been healthy for the last couple years and like wrestling pretty hard in practice the whole time, or is it kind of just pick your spots and spar, or what's that like?
Yeah, no, I've been relatively healthy. There's been dinks and bruises. We got a great trainer here, but yeah, I mean, I haven't. It's not the grind like it is in college when you're competing as a coach, but me and Dom still wrestle every day. It's just a little bit different. We don't have to fight everything tooth and nail. You know, there might be times when we just give it up or give a guy a feel, make sure they have a little success. And so, yeah, I've been pretty healthy. I was pretty healthy going into that tournament.
Yeah, it's you. The thing, Dom, I've known you literally forever, like, you know, going out and recruiting those other guys, you know, in Kansas City when you were 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And you're a guy, win or lose, you always have that smile on your face, but it did look different when you walk back to the middle, you know, like it literally did. Yeah. And, you know, like Kendrick, when you pinned Colo in the finals, that smile, like it wasn't even like relief. It wasn't. It was just like, it looked like just pure joy. Dom, like, is that how you saw when Kendrick walked off? Just like,
Honestly, I didn't get to see Kendrick's match. I was actually coaching Brock Mahler at the same time.
okay, all right.
I just remember looking over my shoulder and I see Kendrick bouncing. And I've only seen that, like, I've seen Kendrick compete a lot, but I've seen him do that like when we play basketball or when we play kickball. Like me and this guy have epic games for 21. And I see him like that. I'm just like, man, there's no chance anybody's going to win. I don't care if it was whoever. And I saw him bounce and I go, he's going to murder this guy. It's over. It's over. And then I literally just hear like boom, boom. Then I hear Kendrick's mom and his wife and his family going crazy. I'm like, he pinned that dude. I was like, I thought he was going to take the guy in like 2 minutes, but he pinned the guy. And I was like, wow, it's crazy.
Well, we just had Kolodzik in that Michigan border brawl right before nationals, you know, a month ago. And he teched Dean Heil and was, you know, wrestling really well. And I mean, you sunned him, Kendrick, but he's a really nice kid, you know, like, you know, but, you know, I'm like watching that match. I'm like, let me ask you this, Kendrick. I don't know how to say this respectfully or disrespectfully. Did you think it would be harder? Did you think the tournament would be harder? Did you think you would just kind of, I mean, you had one kind of close match with Lugo and that, I don't know how close it was. And you just never tried to score. And that's a good way to keep it close. But were you just like, I thought this would happen? Is it like sort of speaking into existence, or was it more, like I'm just mopping dudes up and I didn't think it'd be this, you know, I thought it'd be more difficult.
Yeah, I think I went in without trying to have any expectations. Like obviously, like I want to pin everybody out, walk on the mat. That's what everyone's goal is, right? But
yeah,
I didn't have expectations. We talked a little bit about technique, like as far as what did this guy do? Like I knew what all those guys their best thing was, but it was more like I want to smile and I want to go put on a show. And so I wasn't worried about the outcome, wasn't worried about, oh, am I going to win by this or this? It was just like, hey, we get to wrestle today. Let's go.
Yeah. So I remember, like, when I got done competing and I was coaching, and when you're young, it's like my dad was the head coach. He would just have me just go wrestle with guys and hopefully make them better and teach them stuff. I felt like when I wasn't cutting weight, when I wasn't worried about wrestling matches all the time, that I actually became smarter about the sport, like more of a student of the sport, and not only a student, but understood things better. Maybe it was just a maturity. Maybe your brain actually gets bigger. I mean, I don't know. You guys have obviously been doing this for a long time, but do you feel like Dom, you said maybe your brain is faster than your body, I think is the phrase you use, or something similar to that. So I
That's
start with you,
scary.
Dom.
His body's pretty fast.
Yeah, the basketball games, I feel like it's 3-point versus low post, but I feel like it's Chris Paul and Shaq, but I couldn't be wrong.
So a little bit of everything.
Dom would shoot a 3 every once in a while. So.
I had a bunch of 3s the other day.
All right. I took us on a different path. So does the sport make more sense to you guys now? As you're like, do you, I'll start with you, Dom. Do you understand? Because heavyweight feels like a really tactical weight class, right? Like a lot of times it's the first mistake loses versus the first, good thing wins. Does it make more sense to you now? Are you able to see things more clearly, both as an athlete and as a coach, or?
That's a good question. I wouldn't really say like see it better, but I think I just understand wrestling. Like Kendrick said earlier, you're always like your body would get tensed up and you're kind of like, you're afraid to lose. But at the end of the day, I think like, I remember having this conversation with Zach at Nationals after he lost. And I'm like, dude, what happens if you lose? And he's like, I don't place. And I'm like, well, your mom and dad are still going to love you. Your parents are still going to love you. You still get to go to school. You get to wrestle. Like, what happens at the end of the day? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, exactly. So now as a coach, I'm just trying to tell those guys, like, just go have fun. Like, do everything that we do in practice. Like, why would you drill 1,000 high crotches and not go out there and hit it? Why would you sit out there and look at this guy go to overtime rideouts? So stuff like that. And as an athlete, I'm just like, man, I drill too much. My body hurts. I sacrifice time with my family sometimes, but it's just that's what you have to do. But it's like this guy has to pay for it. So I guess that's kind of a weird answer.
Yeah, no, any answer where you're honest is a great answer. Kendrick, do you see the sport? Like, if you go back and look at like 20-year-old Kendrick versus Kendrick now, do you think you see the sport either differently, like understand it better? Like Don was saying, like, how do you think your perspective has changed?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like Smith talks about a lot. Like when you say like while we're in school, when we take a test and you study for the test and then you take it, and then after it, like that information goes out the window. You don't use it ever again. At first, when you have to teach something, if you go and try to teach something, you actually like have to get deep down in the material. And so I think technical wise, like I've learned so much coaching because I've had to teach it. I've had to watch it. I sit back. I can see that a lot more instead of, being an athlete, just listening and trying to go hit a move. And then just as far as like the mindset, man, after watching so many matches of guys like Josh Edmond, for example, on our team, this guy is a guy who is the most explosive dude ever. And so to see him wrestle a match where he doesn't shoot enough, it's like, man, you could do this a whole match. And you see, and he's going to do it. We're going to get him to do it. And he's going to be an amazing, like you guys watch out, like Josh Edmond will be the dude. But like after watching so many of those, it's like you start to figure out, man, people make wrestling way too complex. Like they let outside fears come in and affect their inside match, fears of failure, getting tired, whatever it is. And so when you can dive into those fears, which is really what I was trying to attack, I think Dom too, before this tournament, like when you can dive into them, you figure out, man, most of them are just false. Like if you just go out and just have fun and put on a show and not worry about those fears, you're going to wrestle a lot better. You still may lose, but you're going to have fun doing it, or you're going to give yourself a chance.
Yeah. The psychology of it is so fascinating, right? Because and you guys are doing it as athletes and coaches. I remember I was at a Division I practice. I was at a camp, like let's say it's the Mizzou summer camp, and then the team is practicing in between sessions, and the team wasn't practicing great. And the head coach brought him in and kind of read him the riot act. And he goes, "Do you know how hard you have to train to get yourself ready to deal with the fatigue of 7 minutes at, you know, XYZ, like on the road, you know, like pick the hardest place to wrestle, you know. And I think on the outside, people don't understand that, right? Like if you guys wrestle with, you know, you wrestle with whoever, you're wrestling with Keegan, you're wrestling with Zach, and you wrestle like 30-minute grind match, right? Like that's really hard. Like most 99.8% of the public cannot do that, period.
Mm-hmm.
But that's easier for you than like a 7 or 6 minute like hard scrap, like with the stuff on the line, if your mental approach isn't right, because it's all this nervous energy. It's like your energy bar is down to like 40% before you even start, where in practice, like, all right, man. You know, like I always said it's like there's t-shirt guys and singlet guys, right? And I think, you know, like you guys have coached enough. Like some guys are practice warriors and then terrible on the weekend, and other guys lose in practice every day, and then on the weekend, like, man, find the brightest light, you can shine it on them.
Yeah.
So are there specific skills, like, you know, you guys both talked about, like, Dom, you talked about your conversation with Zach. Kendrick, you talked about your approach, and I'm sure you're sharing that with the athletes. Are there specific, like, sports psychology kind of things you're doing either with your athletes or with yourself to try to be, I guess, more free, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah. Do you want me to take it down?
Yeah,
I would say for me, like, there's a lot of things we do. Number one, talking about it. Number one, like Smith all the time before practices, he'll go through scenarios. He'll ask guys questions and pick their brain. When you dive, most fear is just unknown. Your fear because you don't know what's on the other side. But that's also where growth comes from. That's also where champions are made, is on that other side where you don't know. And so attacking those fears and constantly reframing their perspective on it is huge. And then put them in situations in practice where they have to dive into fears. I think too many coaches come in and just work a specific technique every day. Wrestling technique. Well, there's technique to being focused. There's technique to putting yourself in the fire and getting outside of your comfort zone. And so we'll do workouts where that's the goal. It's not the goal isn't to come in and hit 20 double A's. The goal is to come and get uncomfortable and see where that takes you. And so I think the more times you can get in that zone, the more comfortable you become with it. And so this is something we do with our guys. We do with Dom. Dom doesn't always, he hates me sometimes when I get him in these practices, but I think it really helps him because he can.
You asked for it, Dom. You asked him to coach you.
I did. 4 years later, still doing it.
You can't be angry if we got what you wished for, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, we have a great relationship, so he doesn't beat me up after.
That's a good thing, yeah. Tell me each of your perspectives, and I don't care who goes first, about O'Toole. So he came in and did a clinic for us at our last charity event. He was just in town with Marcus, you know, at TWA. He, to me, like if you just didn't know any better, like he got kind of a voice where he doesn't sound like the toughest guy in the world. He's the nicest, yes, sir.
The nerd.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that out loud. I don't want to get cradled.
I'll say it.
I don't have that kind of insurance. I'm just saying, like, I don't bend the same way anymore. So I'm just trying to stay at 10-2. I'm just saying he's not the most intimidating person, you know, but he looked like, you know, I got to be on the floor at the NCAAs and do a lot of the interviews after each round, and USA Wrestling would kind of send, it was me and another guy. And when Keegan would come off, since I knew him at least a little bit, like, you go get Keegan. He looked like I don't mean he looked like a serial killer. Like, this is, you know, like it was a whole different dude. So what are your guys like? Okay, maybe just ask what makes Keegan O'Toole special? Because I don't think it's physical gifts.
I'll let you go first, Don.
He's just willing to learn. Like you said, wrestling's a selfish sport. He's probably the most unselfish person I've ever been around in my entire life. He's humble. Like every day I ask that kid to teach me something new. Every single day I ask. And it's just something like, I don't know, I've never seen somebody do this, and he does it. But he's not afraid to come to me and say, hey, Coach Dom, how do you hit your drag this way? And then he'll do it. And he'll tell you if he doesn't like it, but he's very respectful. Like he's the greatest wrestling mind I've been around. And I know that sounds crazy to say that. He's 21 years old now, but like he's just the willingness to learn. And, you know, it keeps me in line because he's never too good. I mean, this kid's a junior world champ, NCAA champ, undefeated, Big 12 champ, MAC champ, whatever. And he's still like, hey, Noah Certain, how do you hit your cradle this way? Why do you do it this way? Like, he just does stuff like that, and I'm just like, man, I don't care what I've done or anything I've done after seeing that kid do that. Just makes you realize, like, wrestling can always humble you, and that kid's always humble. So,
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, he's got gifts, but his learning and being unfazed, like his mental side is unbelievable. He's very cerebral. He's a perfectionist, which you actually have to jump on him. But I remember when I first got here and we're coaching him, and I'm like, he's actually really hard to critique. Like, you watch his matches and like there's not many things he does wrong. And then when you do think he's doing something wrong, he was like, yeah, I let him in on my leg because he wasn't shooting. It's like he's hard to critique, but he's just special, man. I think he has that perfect balance. I don't know if it's a proverb or what, but it's a Chinese proverb or something. But having that ego where you believe you can beat anyone in the world, but at the same time, you believe you can lose to anyone in the world. And so every match he's going to bring it the exact same. Every match he's going to believe he can win, no matter where he's at, no matter if he's down by 6 or 8 like he was in UFA, or if he's crushing a guy, he's trying to score points. And so that mindset, if I had to drop a prototypical guy I want on my team, this is a guy who, man, he looks the part. I mean, he just, well, not looks the part because he kind of a baby faces that. But as far as all the intangibles and everything,
Yeah.
it's special.
Well, he also feels like you said you can win or lose to anybody in the world. He seems like he epitomizes the you can learn from anyone in the world too, kind of thing. Like you're saying, like obviously he had the best season of anybody on your team. I mean, and I'm not going to ask you to say whether or not he's the best wrestler on your team, but he's still learning from guys that didn't win what he won. I think that's probably the correct way to say it, right? And even if you are the best wrestler in a room, somebody does 1 or 2 things better than you do. You don't do everything the absolute best.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, he struck me as, we were trying to put together the clinic, and he's like, my girlfriend's a graphic designer, and like she'll put that flyer together for you real quick. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Don't tell Keegan I did his voice like that.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna do it.
No, don't do me dirty, man. Come on. So, all right. So World Team Trials are in 2 weeks, right? Basically. So now, am I correct, Dom? Gable did not accept. We're recording this on Cinco de Mayo, and yesterday was the day that he had to accept, right? His bid.
Yeah, he didn't.
He did not. So you guys are both at weights with no one sitting in Final X, correct?
Yep.
So just so people understand this, because all the USA Wrestling stuff gets a little confusing for some people. It's basically a funnel. The US Open was level 1. The World Team Trials are level 2. Final X is level 3. We'll just use men's freestyle as an example, with no disrespect to Greco or women's. But like the weights where somebody medaled at the Worlds, they sit. So like Thomas Gilman sits, Dayton Fix sits, etc. Like we'll use Jaden because he's a Mizzou guy, etc. Those guys are sitting. 2 of the weights that people are not sitting, there's only 3, I think, which is 65, 70, and 125. Everybody else, there's somebody already in the finals. So you guys are in 2 of the weights where they literally will not wrestle a final match in Coralville. And, like that becomes the Final X match. So there's no easy thing here, but it's nicer that you don't have to wrestle somebody who's just sitting around waiting and watching film and stuff like that. And Dom, especially, like, I mean, obviously Gable was the best guy in the world and had an unbelievable Olympic run. So it feels like, I'll start with you. 125, you've wrestled all those guys. You've beaten all of them, probably taken a loss or 2 to some of them. That weight feels pretty wide open. I mean, is that how you see it? Like just who wrestles the best that day?
Yeah, it's wrestling, I guess. Like, I just know I got to wrestle. I don't even know who's going to be in the tournament. And honestly, I really don't care. Like what we just been talking about, just trying to have fun. And, we tweaked a couple of things, but my mindset's going to be the same thing. I'm going to tie my shoes. I'm going to tape my finger, pull my straps up, and try to fight somebody as hard as I can legally. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. But yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, Gable was the best, and I wrestled that dude a lot, so I'm glad I don't have to wrestle him right now. So, yeah.
Real good. I don't talk to a lot of many guys that wrestled him. What made him so good, or makes him so good?
Man, he just adjusted well in the matches. The 3 times I wrestled him, it was They were all pretty close. I mean, he was young, but the last time we wrestled at NYC, I just couldn't finish a high crouch on him. I ran him out of bounds, and every time he shot on me, he never stayed on the mat. He came straight to his feet. And as a coach, that's what you preach when you get a shot, come up to your feet. And he never really took me down, but he got up to his feet so quick that I couldn't do anything. So I would just go out of bounds. So I think the last time was like 4-1, but I mean, he's just good. I mean,
Clearly.
I'll scrap with that dude every time. I don't care. So
Yeah.
fun.
Well, also that, it's like losing to that guy. It's like, like perspective wise, like that's not exactly a bad loss.
No, not bro.
Well, there's some losses that are frankly bad losses. That's not a bad loss. Like if either one of you guys lose to me on one-on-one in basketball, that is a terrible loss. I'm just telling you that right now. That's not the sport for my people. We don't do that. So Kendrick, I feel like a lot of people are watching film of you, right? Like it's now all of a sudden like, oh, there's another guy here. I mean, and you're going to be in there with the Yannis, the Nick Lees, the Colos, all that kind of stuff. I know the answer is going to be, I'm just going to walk around at 147 and make my weight and cut it loose and smile. Do you guys let me ask you this. Are there any you have film, right? Of you guys wrestling or video, whatever you want to call it. I'm old, call it film. Are there tactical things that you guys adjust for yourself? Like, hey, I'll pick a stupid example, Kendrick. Like I didn't finish my cradle correctly, like something like, but are there things that you look at and go, I need, to win this next tournament, I need to make some adjustments? Do you look at guys and say like, I'm going to try to take away the best thing that this other person does, or is it too far out for that?
I'd say there's an element of it. I don't think we focus too much on it just because we don't want to get away from what we do best, but we're going to make small tweaks. Like Dom was saying, where they're just a couple things with where his foot goes, where, what's his right hand doing that are big game changers, but just a small fix. And so I would say those are the biggest things. I know like with a guy like Keegan, he can give me a good feel for a lot of those guys at my weight just because he's smart. He knows how to adapt to different styles. So we'll be getting it ready to go.
And he'll be wrestling in Coralville too, right?
No.
No. No, so he's taking the summer off, or is he doing U20s or 23s or?
Yeah, he's going to take summer off, heal up a little bit, and get ready to go for next season.
Gotcha. But I mean, I assume he's going to probably try to make the team in 24 eventually.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
and he's the right weight class for that. Obviously, like 60 people that don't know, 74 is 162.8, give or take an ounce or tenth of a pound. So, I mean, and I'm assuming he's not killing himself to make 65. He does look bigger at 65 this year than he did last year. He looked like
a baby last year.
Yeah, I was saying he looked like kind of a
he
baby.
started at 57, so he's doing what he wanted to.
Well, we got a few minutes left. I want to say this respectfully. When I came out of high school, Mizzou was not the place that it is now. I'll just say that. I mean, it just wasn't. Like other teams were sending their backups in for dual meets. And now, I mean, you guys are probably too young to know that, which is depressing, but it's also true. But now, not only is that not happening, but you're winning those duels. I mean, you guys had probably a somewhat disappointing dual meet season for you, but an unbelievable Big 12 tournament for you. I think everybody except your finalists that didn't win finished on an odd number on the backside, which is, I'm sure every coach in the country preaches that, win your last match. So, and I know Smith talks a lot about Tiger style. Dom, I know you were there and then, went away and came back. Maybe just to close, like tell people like why is Mizzou a special place? What's the culture and why are you guys doing what you're doing? Because it feels like a lot of the teams that placed in the top 10 this year, I feel like will not score as many points as they did this year. And I feel like if I could bet however many points you scored this year and I could pick the over under, I would take the over by a mile. If for no other reason, Mahler's coming back, and heavyweight clears out and Zach probably gets on the podium. So those two things alone, plus obviously you'll have guys that will improve. I'm sure you feel like, Mako's going to be an All-American, Certain's going to be an All-American, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to leave anybody out, but just a little bit about why the culture is what it is, why it's working, and why you guys are so optimistic about the future.
I would say just like I said, Tiger style culture. Coach Smith, man, he's a truly amazing coach. When you got a guy who's not the Kel Sandersons, but yeah, he's having the success and it's consistent, right? We placed in the top 10 for I don't know how many years now. I know it's over 7 or 8. Um, and it's not always with the best recruits. It's not always with the number one recruit. So when you can know you're developing guys, when you know it's staying consistent over the years, we're doing something right. And now I believe we got the hammers in to jump to that next level. We got Keegan O'Toole's and all these guys. Oh, I mean, every guy on our team, like every guy in our starting lineup, I truly believe can All-American, win national titles. These guys are special. The room's special. And so if recruits, I mean, if I'm a recruit, that's where I want to go. I mean, I was always a guy who I like the underdog approach, and I was like, I want to be that place that's different. I don't want to look like everybody else. And so we got so much diversity. We got so much, talent, all different fields, and you got a coaching staff that believes in you. We're not a cookie cutter program. We're not going to try to change you, and we're going to care for you even after college. And so that's why I think it's special. You got great leadership under Coach Smith, great coaches. So, man, it's a fun group.
Tom?
Man, he hit it on the head, but it's like Kendrick said, after college, we have so many kids that are in doctors or in med school and law school. All these kids are graduating with their masters. Like, that shit just speaks to what the program is. It's doing one more. So most of these kids are graduating masters. I'm going back this summer to get my master's. I'm like, dang, why didn't I do this when I was in college? And it's just these step it up and elevate to the next level. It's just crazy how much the program's grown from like what you used to talking about back then. That's what I heard, and I came to Mizzou and I was like, you guys will never be in the top 10, and then we're in the top 10, and you'll never have anybody be good. Then we have 3 junior world champs, Olympians, and heck, 2 coaches just wrestling the U.S. Open finals. Like, it's crazy. So it's just elevating each other, bringing each other up. Like, I'm not gonna leave Cole Gripka, who's probably the 4th string heavyweight. I'm not gonna leave him behind. I'm gonna bring him in, and he's helping me train. I'm gonna bring our 3rd string heavyweight and bring him up. And it's not to say that I'm not gonna bring Connor Brown in and say, hey, watch the way Coach Maple drills. This is the way you get better. You're always you're bringing people up. It doesn't matter if you're 5th string or 4th string. You don't know, somebody get hurt. So it's just the one more is just elevating everybody.
Well, Dom, you were mic'd up, I think it was at the Big 12 or NCAAs. I don't remember who did it or whatever else, but no, it was great. It really was great. I think people don't get to see that stuff behind the scenes as much. I think part of what makes Mizzou special, and obviously you guys, Dom, you touched on it, but you can't really say it, is the fact that you have coaches that are still really freaking good at wrestling. Like most coaches were really good at wrestling. You still really are. And I will close this out by telling you a quick story that's the opposite of you guys. Like when I was at Merrimack, when the year like Duran and those guys were on the team, Dom, I did the old guy jiu-jitsu worlds, and I came back and I had won. And we were just supposed to be running and lifting, and they talked my dad into us wrestling that day. Those guys, it was an old guy hate crime. They just beat the hell out of me for like an hour. And I was like, what? Like, it was like, all right, we're happy you won, but we're going to put it on you, man. I was like 36, 37 years old. That they shouldn't be doing things like that. That's not right.
No, that ain't right.
That's messed up.
Well, the worst part was they got my dad in on it. And like, he ain't that guy. Like, he's usually like, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And like, he said, I don't know if they paid him or talked him into, I don't know what happened. Cause like, we go in the room. I go, why are we going in the room? He's like, oh, I just thought we'd let him drill.
Oh, set
and
up.
Next thing you know, we're like putting him in groups. And then one of them just literally like pulled me off the wall. Like I was just standing there watching. I still had holes in my feet because from jiu-jitsu, like this is not right. This is so.
That's messed up.
Don, you go put it on Duran the next time you see him, okay? I saw him out there, and he's fighting soon. He's fighting in like a month. I think it was like June 12th or something. So
that's awesome.
Nice.
Guys, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to you guys each individually. I wouldn't say proud of you because I had nothing to do with it. I'm happy for you both. How about that? And I had nothing to do with it, but And you got, when I'm at USA Wrestling, you have to be Switzerland and not root for people, but I'm not going to say I didn't smile when you guys were winning your matches for sure. So congratulations. Good luck in Coralville. I'll probably be there. And Coach Smith invited me out to camp. I think we're going to do a promo for a big event that you probably have talked to him about in the coaches meeting that's going to go public like in the next 30 days. I think we're going to try to set something up like the shop in a barber shop and I'll give a quick shout out to my boy Drizzy, who lines you guys up when you come to St. Louis. Yeah. I think we're going to bring him down there to Columbia and do something like that. So I don't know what he's going to do with me except laugh, but we'll figure it out.
Hot shave.
Hot shave. All right. Asians don't grow a lot of facial hair, but we'll do it. Guys, I really appreciate it. For Dom and for Kendrick, I'm David. Thank you for watching, listening, and sharing. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you.